Hello, fight fans. Welcome to another episode of More Than a Fight podcast. Bienvenidos. I am your host, Jose Alfredo Alcázar, and this is your co host.
One.
And today's episode, we're going to be touching on a subject that doesn't have to do with any kind of fight recap or upcoming fights. It's about judging and scoring, something I feel passionate about. I know Juan feels a certain way about it. And more importantly, we want this to be the foundation of our podcast. What do we mean by that? As in, we wanted to set us apart. We want to touch on subjects that affect fighters and fans alike, and this is one of those subjects, in our opinion. How do you feel, or what is your take on judging and scoring before we get into it?
Yeah. So let's say it's opinionated. It's not. I mean, there technically is a way to judge a fight, but I mean, it's so hard once you're there doing it. It's going to be your opinion on that round. That's
Right.
really it. And it's not good because there's always every time, not every time, but if it's a close fight, if it's going to the judges, you already know it's going to be a split decision. They're not going to agree with it, or you just never know.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into some bullet points about that. And we're going to the main thing is we're going to touch on a couple fights to illustrate some of the points that we want to touch on. And the first fight we want to get into only because it's one of the more recent fights and the freshest as far as memory goes for boxing fans. And I'm referring to Jack Caddarol and Josh Taylor, which took place in Glasgow, and it was on February 26th. And what did you make of that fight from your personal perspective?
It was a very competitive fight. It was I mean, I went to the scorecards and again, it's a toss up. We were watching it on ESPN.
Mm,
So we had Andre Ward saying he had Taylor up. We had Tim Bradley saying he had Catterall up. And again, it's all perspective. What do you like watching? What do you
right.
prefer? I mean,
And even I felt Joe Tessitore had a different take as well because he was the third man on the call.
it was a toss up. It was a great fight. It was back and forth. They were both doing their thing. But I mean, if I was a judge, yeah, sure, I would have gave it to Catterall, but I'm not a judge.
Yeah, and there's a couple things that go into that fight, but we'll get into it after the because I want to get into the some of the things that I saw because I when I was watching it, I personally thought Jack Catterall won at the end of the fight when it was all said and done. Before the judges even gave their scores, I was like, "Oh, Catterall got it, undisputed, bravo!" You went into this man's backyard and you beat him. But unfortunately, that's not what happened.
Unfortunately,
We
not.
had the judges' scorecards. Ian John Lewis scored it 114 to 111 for Josh Taylor.
Right.
Then
We got
Victor,
Victor Laughlin, which had a 113, 112. I mean, toss up again. It could have got it
right,
was one round. And then we had Howard Foster that actually gave it a Catterall.
the only
The other
judge.
way, he get 113. It was one round that separated them. And it is what it is. It happened.
Yeah,
Luckily, Catterall, after being very verbal about it, having people behind him believing that he won, hopefully he gets a rematch. Put enough
yeah.
pressure on Josh Taylor to give up his mandatory, give up a belt to fight him.
And I think that's gonna happen because of the pressure that's being applied to him from the fight fans really. Because I can't really say the public's more fight fans that have applied the pressure.
Yeah.
But even before we get into that, I just wanted to point out that Andre Ward gave Taylor the fight after everything was said and done because he was the unofficial scorer for that fight, at least for ESPN. I don't know who it was for Sky, but when I was listening to the fight, because I watched it twice, he kept pointing out that Josh Taylor was applying the pressure, was the aggressor, and okay, that's fine, but Jack Catterall was countering him very well. And it was clear as day that Josh Taylor had no answer for that straight left that Jack Catterall kept landing and landing
Mm,
effectively, mind you.
right.
And even then, at times when Taylor would get him against the ropes, I felt like Catterall was evading his shots very
He,
well.
he fought very well, yeah.
So again, yes, he was pressuring Catterall, but how effective was the pressure?
I mean,
And
enough to get the
how do
judges to give him the
we
fight.
and for me personally, because I'm watching it on TV, and from what I recall, so was Andre Ward because he was not
Hmm.
there at the
Hmm.
arena. And yes, again, I see where you're saying it's opinionated, and he is a boxer. I don't have anywhere near the experience that Andre Ward has, as far as that goes. But judging it, I was trying to see what he was seeing. But when I watched it a second time, I'm like, yes, I see the pressure he's referring to, but where are the effective shots? I
True.
don't see them.
True. Him and Bradley, I mean, they're both fighters. Usually don't agree.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. Because at the end of the fight, like I said, Ward had Taylor, and Tim Bradley was like, no, the wrong man won.
Right.
Jack Caddarol won that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I agreed with Tim Bradley and even Tessitore when when Andre Ward after the fourth round said, I have it 3-1 in favor of Taylor, Tessitore chimed in and said, well, no, I don't see it that way. So you have three people right there on the commentary team. One has Taylor, the other two have Caddarol. And again, that's where it drives me crazy. It's like we have to have some kind of way to judge a fight and not have three different perspectives on it.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll hit that one a little more. Let's go to the next fight.
But
that
no,
we thought.
before we go to the next fight, real quick,
Yeah.
I just wanted to
right.
point out that Ian John Lewis, the man who gave 114, 111, got downgraded by the British Boxing Commission. They downgraded him from an A+ judge to just, I think, an A judge. But I know he was downgraded. I don't know the specifics of what exactly his grade is now, but I know they downgraded him because of this fight. And I want to send a quick shout out to Fight Disciples because I feel like because of them, and this is what inspired this episode, that they put in the work. They interviewed Ben Shalom. They interviewed Jack Caddarol. And they interviewed, I can't remember the gentleman's name from the British Boxing Commission, but they interviewed him as well. And they interviewed Daniel Kinahan as well. Well, in a way, interviewed Kinahan. He just sent out statements. But it's just, I'm glad he got downgraded. That something came out of it, but not enough. And we're going to touch on, like you said, the next fight, which is.
Oh, what was another one? Danny Garcia versus Mauricio Herrera.
And we picked this one because it has similarities to Caddarol Taylor.
Yeah, so Herrera went to Puerto Rico. This was Danny Garcia's homecoming. Well, he is Puerto Rican from Philadelphia, but it was his, bringing him to Puerto Rico.
His first fight in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, and bringing get a crowd behind him, and I would assume make more fights over there, right? Maybe that's why.
I'm sure they were trying to get more Puerto Rican fans behind him.
Yeah, so Mauricio Herrera was, I'll say it in Spanish, sorry. Mauricio Herrera, he was very tricky, and Danny Garcia couldn't figure him out. It looked like he couldn't figure him out. And he was getting jabbed to the face all night. Awkward movements from Herrera were making it difficult. And
at one point, you could even see when Herrera landed a solid jab that busted Garcia's nose. He started bleeding. He landed the cleaner shots, in my opinion. But at the end of the fight, apparently that's not what happened, especially according to Frank Lombardi, who had a ridiculous card of 118, 110.
Yeah, that was actually, we got it wrong right there. It was Lombardi was Romero versus Marinas,
Oh,
which we're going after.
I'm sorry, I apologize. You're right.
Actually, it was that was, it was a 2-round swing on those,
I apologize,
which was Colon and Rochin. And then Gustavo Padilla felt a little more embarrassed, so he put it as a draw.
That's a good way to put it. I'm glad you put it that way. That's probably what it was. He's like, you know what? I can't not give it to Garcia, but I can not give it to Herrera, so I'm going to play it safe and call it a draw.
So, I mean, it happened.
But even in the 12th round of that fight of Danny Garcia versus Mauricio Herrera, and again, we bring up this fight because it has similarities to it.
Mm-hmm.
He went to his backyard, just like Jack Caddarol went to Josh Taylor's backyard.
Mm-hmm.
He went there as the underdog, or just as the guy who's supposed to, provide a good fight, but he's not gonna win.
Yeah. So, I mean, unfortunately, after that, Herrera kind of, what would you call it? He went to gatekeeper status after this fight, even though he could have been the champion at 140.
And that's the other thing that we'll touch on is how it affects fighters' careers, because I feel like it's not fair.
No.
And it's one thing if it's a close fight, but when it's not a close fight and the other man's clearly getting beaten, and even physically, Danny Garcia at the end of the fight, you could tell he took punishment.
Oh, he took a lot of punishment, yeah.
But they gave him the fight because he's the A side. And we'll touch on that as well.
Yeah.
But we have a third fight that we want to point out, and more so because this dude talks a lot.
Yeah, Rolly. This was this year, right? February this
Mhm.
year. Was it February this year or last
No,
year?
no, no. It
Whatever
was
it
last year. It
was.
was because it was during COVID when there was no crowds.
Right.
It was
So
last year.
so on this one, it was not a crowd thing that put the judges one way or another. I don't know what it was because one judge pretty much gave Rolly every single round, and
I
I
think
don't
it's
know
the fact
how.
that he's an up and he was a is a prospect or like a a promising fighter, and he is a PBC guy,
Mm.
and he is with Mayweather Promotions, and I think that had a lot to do with it. And Jackson Marinas wasn't any of those things.
Unknown. He came in. I mean, good, right? He has a good record, but unknown to most of us. And after that fight, of course, I never forgot him because I saw how good he boxed.
He outboxed him.
Oh,
And this is where
yes,
I wanted, where I mistakenly pointed out Frank Lombardi in the Herrera
yeah,
Garcia fight. This is where Frank Lombardi scored it 118, 110, which is absurd.
it is. And did he get in trouble for that? Who I don't
He should
know.
have, just like we talked about with Ian John Lewis. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
When you do something that ridiculous, you should be downgraded or fined. Something should happen,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't. Because everybody went after, remember Adelaide Bird when she put out that card with,
For Canelo or which
I
one?
believe it was Canelo and Triple G in the first
Uh,
fight?
yeah.
Or
What was
yeah,
it?
no, it
No, I
was the
thought it
first
was a
one.
Mayweather fight where it was a draw, right? No, it was a
Um,
Mayweather. It might have been Triple G. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was Triple G because the Mayweather fight was CJ Ross
Oh, I got you.
who
Yeah,
scored it a draw for
Canelo
Canelo
and
and
we
Mayweather,
we
and that wasn't a
all we
draw.
that wasn't a draw. That was not a
Uh,
close fight.
just because we're Mexican doesn't mean we're gonna say that Canelo deserved the draw. He didn't. Mayweather whooped his ass. He took him to school.
Yeah.
Because if I told you, why is he trying to box him? That was the dumbest
Oh no.
dumbest thing Eddie Reynoso and Canelo ever did, trying to box a master.
Yeah, he's not gonna
So
outbox
how
Mayweather
CJ
now.
Ross scored that 114 is beyond me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Adelaide Bird was the Triple G thing.
Well, at least the other two judges
If
got it
I'm not
right. I
mistaken.
mean, closer than it should have been, I think, but they got it right. They got the right winner. So.
But no, yeah, it's just like Rolly should have a loss to his record, and Jackson Marinas should have a
Oh, yes, two
victory.
now. Yes,
And yes, and that's
Marinas.
another point that recently Marinas took a fight on 6 days' notice, like you pointed out.
I mean, yeah, it was televised. The opponent dropped out for what was his
Frank
name?
Martin.
Frank Martin, and Marinas stayed ready and he took the fight. Sadly, it was only on 6 days' notice. Gave it his best, but it just wasn't enough. So all we know as most fans, we saw Marinas twice and we saw him lose twice. And unfortunately, he's gonna have to climb out of that. And it's gonna be it's gonna be tough.
Yeah. And then now that we're mentioning that, I want to point out a couple bullet points. Like, for instance, the issue with A side, B side.
Yeah.
And I know we touched on Canelo and Mayweather, but Mayweather's the one that really coined that narrative or that created that narrative
Right.
of A side and B side. And unfortunately, that affects judges as well, and it shouldn't. A judge shouldn't care who the A side is or the B side is.
They
That
should
is
have.
not their job. Their job is to judge the fight. Whoever's in the ring, it doesn't matter. Your job is to judge that fight, what they do in the ring, not who the hell's favored, who's on the marquee, or whose name is first and whose name is second.
It is not their job, but they're human, so they
I,
they, they get they get swayed one way or another.
yes.
And how can that be fixed? I mean, we're not be there and watch it
Yeah,
outside
no,
of where
that
there's no crowd with no sound, or maybe get only fighters to judge fights, or
yeah, and we'll touch on that as well because I want to make sure that we point out like all the little things that unfortunately go into these decisions for fans who are
Mhm,
not really up to par on these things.
mhm.
Because the other thing I wanted to point out, and we're building this up to show you the things that go into what uh, ultimately sways judges. And the other thing is who is hosting the event. In other words, let's say it's ESPN or it's the Zone or PBC. That matters as well.
Mhm.
And again, when you're the B side, you also are taking on who's hosting the event.
Yeah, all the odds are against you. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people want to say you almost got a knockout
And again,
fighter.
Mauricio Herrera was going up against who? The A side and Danny Garcia,
Yeah,
and then PBC.
yes, it was
Jack Caddarol was going against who?
Sky and
Josh Taylor and
yeah,
ESPN.
yeah. So and his
So
home crowd and
yeah, that too. It's like, come on, man. How much more do you want these guys to have to take on before even the bell rings? It's ridiculous. And
yeah.
again, that should not be in a judge's minds, in the back of their mind. That shouldn't affect them.
But how can we fix that? I
Well,
mean,
the number one, the one thing they could start doing is not allowing the host to pay the judges. As in, I didn't realize this until maybe a year or two ago that whoever puts on the fight, like the promoter or the platform, they're the ones who pay the judges.
yeah, I always thought it was a commission. So
No, and I've read a few
my bad
articles
there.
on that
Mm.
that they will pay the judges, they will pay wherever it is they stay, and if you're a judge, like they say, you're not gonna bite the hand that feeds you, are you?
Uh,
Because if you do, I'm assuming there's repercussions behind that.
right. Yeah. It's not right. I suggested this maybe bring 10 possible judges and
Yes. Or
don't
9 because you need 3 and 3.
yeah, but I
Whatever,
mean
you know
just
what I
don't
mean?
announce who's going to be judging.
Yes.
No way to kind of know
Yeah, if
what's
you have
what.
some what's the word? Phantom judges or decoys.
Yeah, and
Decoys.
then let the commission decide who's the judges and go with that maybe.
And then at the night of the fight is when you say these are the 3 judges for the main event.
Yeah, not knowing. Yeah, like promoters, no one else knowing, fighters. So there's no foul play there, I'd
Yeah, something needs I think they need to start fining these people.
say. Mhm.
Like we pointed out this dude with the Rolly Romero
Yeah,
and
yeah.
freaking
Well, even in boxing though, it's
Frank Lombardi.
yeah.
He should have been suspended or fined for that card he put out for Romero and Jackson Marinas. 118 to 110 is ridiculous because if you put any kind of fight fan to watch that fight and score it, I highly doubt they will come up with that scorecard.
Yeah, but another problem sometimes is the referee. You could tell he's a little more involved when he shouldn't be sometimes because maybe they know I don't know if they know the fighter, but again, they're appointed for a long time, and they maybe they get spoiled, and
Right.
they're gonna help.
Well, now that you point out the referee, I know a lot of people. A big event that they pointed out the referee, or a
Mhm.
big decision, was when Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury fought the first time because they claimed that Jack Reese counted too slowly for Tyson Fury. You remember that?
But he did though. I
But
thought it was like
I,
15
I also
seconds. This should have been a
appreciated
knockout.
what Jack Reese said.
Oh,
Jack Reese said, "I'm not going to not allow the guy to get up. If I can see he has the ability to get up, I'm also going to try to give him an opportunity to get up."
but what did 9 out of 10 referees, as soon as they saw how hard Fury hit the floor, he's not there. They would have stopped it immediately, like 1 second in.
Mm,
Yeah, it's done, right?
You can
They
say
wouldn't
that,
give
but I've
him.
also seen refs when they let him get up and you can tell the guy still doesn't have his legs under him and they'll start counting or telling him, come to me. And it's like the guy is clearly still all on his feet.
Mm.
But maybe the refs are another part of it as
They're
well. But
another part of it. But again, we'll touch on that after.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we got something else to talk about next
Well,
time.
yeah. And one of the number one things and is the next bullet point that really gets me angry is how it affects fighters' careers. Because to me, that's the biggest thing. They are the biggest losers.
Yeah, so Herrera after the Garcia fight, I mean, his name. He was a gatekeeper. He's good. He was
He no,
good.
he became a
Yeah,
gatekeeper
yeah, he
because they
became
didn't
one
give him the decision,
because obviously he was
which is
good enough
BS.
to beat Danny, right?
Yeah,
In
he
most
did beat
people's
him.
eyes.
Bullshit.
And then they were just testing him. Any up and comer, you're fighting Herrera. You beat Herrera, then we know you're for real, right?
And of course, Danny Garcia didn't want to give him the rematch.
Of course not. So we got him. We got
And that's what I mean.
Marinas.
Had Herrera won that fight, he
Right.
gets the rematch. He gets paid more because now they can bill it as, oh, Danny Garcia was off or the revenge, or they can market it any number of ways.
Yeah, but his payday, they messed up his payday. He could have
But not
changed
even
his
that.
life
Who
with
knows?
that fight
Yes,
alone.
exactly. Who knows where
So
it would have taken his career? It just sucks. And like we said, Jackson Marinas too.
yeah,
Another example.
yeah, he should. He
And
would
now
have been.
Jack Caddarol,
Yeah,
which is the other example that we use, he still hasn't gotten his rematch.
but I think Josh Taylor's bothered enough. He gave up a belt
He's
to
being
take it.
bothered.
Yo, he's being bothered, and he is bothered, and he wants to prove people wrong. And I can beat him.
But what sucks is that he just vacated a title. I believe it was the WBA.
Yeah. So,
So that means Jack Caddarol isn't going to get a shot at undisputed.
well, not right away. It's going to be him.
Yes, but not right away means you're assuming he's going to be Josh Taylor in the rematch,
I don't. And
and
I'm not
then
assuming
we're
because I don't think he
also
is.
assuming that he's gonna get a shot at Jose Cepeda versus Ramirez, which is where the WBA is taking their title, as far
Yeah.
as they're gonna fight for that title,
But
that vacated title.
you'd like to think whoever wins that fight is they're gonna fight each other. I mean, I'd like to think that, but again, the networks are
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. The
the other
problem is
thing.
that Jack Caddarol is not with ESPN,
Yeah.
and
So
Jose Cepeda and Ramirez are with ESPN or with Top Rank. I'm sorry,
right,
ESPN is just the platform that Top Rank is featured on.
right.
So again, somebody needs to be fined. They need to take action against these judges. And the sanctioning bodies need to be the ones that pay the judges
Right.
to judge the fights, not the promoters, not the platforms. Because then there is already a bias, or they're already going to lean towards one side. Because this person's buttering my bread. I don't want to go against them because they might not hire me again.
Right.
I might not get that steak dinner. I might not get that lobster tail if I go against them. It sucks.
So what's the fix? What do you
I
suggest at
think what you
least?
suggested is a good idea to basically have 9, maybe even 6 judges the week of the fight, and you don't announce them until fight night who the
Mhm.
3 are.
Preferably ex fighters, maybe,
Yes.
because they kind of they've been there and
I think
they
at
know what
least
to
you should
look
have
for.
1 ex fighter and 2 judges.
Okay, fair. But yeah, no. I mean, there's no universal system. I mean, obviously, the
Yeah.
Olympic system doesn't work.
No, yeah. And then I'm glad you touched on that because I believe and I know in LA they said they're not going to have boxing for the LA Olympics. I can't remember what year that is. I want to say it's 20. Okay, never mind.
It's in
John
Paris.
just popped it up on. Okay, but I thought in LA they are not even going to allow them because of corruption.
You might be right. That I'm not sure about.
I read that and I saw a post on that. And I think it's great that they're not going to allow them because of corruption in the LA Olympics.
Mm.
Because it's true. How many the notable fighters that did not win gold that should have won gold?
Oh, Mayweather and Roy Jones.
Exactly. And Roy Jones to this day will say, I beat that man. That medal should be mine. It's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these fighters growing up, I'd say a big goal is to be an Olympic gold medalist.
Absolutely, to
They
represent
took
your
it from him.
country.
Yeah, and they
And
took
I'm
it from him.
glad they're not going to allow it because that's what needs to happen. Unfortunately, you got to bring down the hammer on these people. You got to say, no, you guys are corrupt. Why the hell are we going to allow you to be in the Olympics? Come
Mhm.
on now. It's insane. And
Yes.
speaking of corrupt, I wanted to point out quickly that the WBA is being taken to court because it was found out that they take money in order to fix the rankings or in order to adjust rankings, and that's a big thing.
Yeah, that's not right.
And the number one example I can think off the top of my head is Regis Prograis because he's mad that he's not getting a shot at that WBA title. And could that be because he's not with ESPN? Could it be because Top Rank paid the WBA out of pocket and said, "Hey, no, we want it to be Cepeda and Ramirez. These are our guys. So hey, make it happen."
Maybe it's a ticket sellers. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, no,
It's
sure he
bullshit.
deserves it.
But I'm glad they're being taken to court. I'm glad it's coming out because now they should look into the other sanctioning bodies, WBA, WBC, IBF, IBO. Look into them too because I'm sure that the WBA is not the only one. I'm pretty damn sure actually that they're
Right.
also in on it. And that's the problem. They're not going to help solve this issue of judging and scoring because they're obviously in on it. They're getting money from it. They take the money from the fighters' fucking purses when they hold the belt. Like for instance, Josh Taylor was undisputed. They get 2% from each belt of their purse. So that's
Yeah.
what 2, 4, or is it? It might be 3%. Might be a size, no, but it's 2%. Let's go with 2%.
Yeah.
That's 8% of the fighter's purse that they're taking right there.
Yeah. That's a good chunk of
But
change.
these assholes won't put judges on there.
Yeah.
They won't step in and punish them or fine them or do something. It just drives me crazy.
Right. So
And we need to have some kind of, like you said, maybe the judging thing of having 6 judges the night of fight week and then saying, oh no, these are the 3 that are actually going to be the judges. The other 3 were just decoys. for me personally, I would like to see maybe like a judge has a uh, an assistant every round, and they have to give the assistant their score, and then they have to give the score to someone else or a commentator or something, and they don't have to announce it right away, but each round the judge has to give their score to the assistant and why they scored it that way in that round. Maybe that's too complicated, but it's just an
Yeah.
idea. I need to word it better.
Sounds a little complicated,
Yeah.
but yeah, maybe word it better next time, and maybe
Yeah.
we'll all understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah. But thank you guys. That's one, like I said, our first episode to really illustrate what we're going after with this podcast. And we want to make sure that we continue to have subject matters where it will involve how it affects fighters and how it affects fans. And what should they do?
Comment, like, subscribe, hit the
And
little bell on
more so,
YouTube.
comment, give us your opinion.
Yeah.
If you guys have a way that maybe you think fights should be judged, or that can help, or even hold the judges accountable that we didn't maybe think of,
Yeah.
please feel free to give us your take.
Or even some subject matter for a future episode,
Yes,
and we'll be
absolutely.
happy to cover
Awesome.
that
That's a
too.
great idea. Yes.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.